Newlyweds Frederick Smith and Hattie Reynolds are devoted to their sobriety and family life. But less than a year into the marriage, Hattie's attracting the attention of Jeff Magio, who they meet at Narcotics Anonymous. And then she does something that for Frederick is unforgivable. She falls off the wagon.
I made a lot of mistakes, and I did a lot of things during the marriage that I'm ashamed of. I was definitely not a little Susie homemaker.
Frederick, desperate for he and Hattie to stay clean and sober together, reacts badly.
What the hell's this? What is this? You starting that again?
There was a good deal of violence. He tackled me a couple times, put me through a window one time, put me through a wall one time. But, he didn't think about what he was doing.
Let go of me!
He was so sorry immediately afterwards.
Get the out of here now! Smack you in your head.
My mother and Frederick had a tumultuous relationship, but it was because it was a passionate one. They loved one another very, very deeply, and that comes out in different ways, especially with people who have, mental disorders or drug addictions that they're dealing with.
My drug problem was pretty severe at this point. I would binge, and then I would have consequences, and then I'd try to get it together and so forth.
Whether it's the drugs or the fear that Hattie is seeing other men, Frederick refuses to leave her alone.
He was very obsessive. He got several jobs, and he kept leaving the jobs because he would leave in the middle of the day to come see me.
You should be earning some money first. Get the hell out of here!
If I thought that he was acting like he was about to try and bully me or be violent with me or something like that, I would just get in his face. I became verbally violent with him.
I'm not that surprised by the incidents of physical abuse that we're hearing about at this point, because we knew that both of these spouses had impulsivity in their histories, and you could see it in the fact that they've got the substance abuse histories. Both of them do.
I'm particularly concerned about the fact that Hattie is using drugs and on a regular basis. Frederick's sponsor in Narcotics Anonymous, it's got to be challenging to have him facing this with his own wife.
Frederick and Hattie have a lot of stressors on their hands. They have substance abuse history, they have financial pressures. It seems like the children that they already have are more than they can handle. So all of these things converge upon a lot of concern for Frederick and Hattie at this point.
Just as quickly as it began, the marriage starts to fall apart.
There were probably 4 severe violent incidents between us when it was absolutely obvious that I needed to go. And nobody could believe that we stayed together as long as we did.
2 years after the wedding, Hattie takes the kids, moves out, and files for divorce. But Frederick refuses to accept that the marriage is over.
At times it got so bad, and he would come and knock on the door all night long. He would call constantly, all the time.
Fred, get the hell out, get a life, leave us alone!
Frederick's so persistent that Hattie obtains a restraining order against him.
It was very bad environment for a child to be around, to hear that kind of thing. Us screaming at each other all the time.
Amidst the chaos, daughter Virginia goes to live with her biological father, and Hattie gets a new apartment on Highland Road.
It was a really run-down apartment complex, and it was populated by people that just didn't really do much of anything productive.
That neighborhood was fun. You could go into one of the back buildings that had been abandoned and watch a punk rock show. Just anything you could imagine was there, and we had fun. Probably too much fun,
But Hattie's absence is not fun for Frederick. He's so depressed that he returns to a habit he hasn't touched in 11 years.
He went downhill a lot. He started using during his time. I feel a lot of responsibility for him losing the sobriety he had, because I didn't have very much sobriety at any point at that time. 4 or 5 months at a time is what I'd have. But he had 11 years.
All right, I'm gonna need $40, it's coming.
When Frederick falls off the wagon, he falls hard. And he takes Jeff Magio with him, the man he sponsored in Narcotics Anonymous.
Give it up.
For lack of a better term, they were drug buddies.
Their history basically was, okay, you got some money? Yeah. You want to go get some drugs? Okay.
The two men hang out by the abandoned pier at the Mississippi River levee.
Teenage kids go out there to do stuff they're not supposed to, and then people living out there, because they had no other place to go.
Oh, geez, a levee? It could be a place of inspiration, or it could be a place of debauchery. If you're in Frederick's shoes, you got, nowhere to really go.
For a time, Hattie allows Frederick to see their son, despite his addiction, until crack cocaine obliterates his judgment entirely when he decides to take their infant son on a camping trip.
My mom says, okay, we gave him permission and everything. And then she gets a call from the cops. He had been homeless at the time, apparently, and sleeping in a tent out on the levee, and brought my little baby brother there.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
Someone called the cops because there's a baby here that could freeze to death, and it's as if those kind of thoughts never crossed his mind.
His judgment was poor. Let's just say that for the most part.
But Hattie doesn't want to cut off Frederick's access to their son completely. And so when he moves into the same building on a different floor, Hattie doesn't fight it.
He went through a dozen residences. He got evicted from every one of them. The last place he rented was in the building with me.
Okay.
You again.
God, this place is almost as bad as mine.
She thought that it would be better for her son's father to be around, so pretty much at any given time she could have had him arrested, and she didn't.
He was not supposed to be anywhere around, but he really didn't know how to take no for an answer, mainly because I kept sending mixed signals.
Well, I guess there'll be some benefits to having you here.
From time to time, I was still going off and meeting him.
Lead the way.
They love each other one minute, they hate each other the next minute, and it's part of the ingredient that made for their attraction to each other initially. It made for the storminess of their relationship while it was going on.
We've all been there where Hattie is, where you hate someone, you don't want them around, and yet you still love them. And so it's this push me, pull you of, I don't want to be near you, but okay, I'm going to be nice to you. I'm getting concerned about Frederick. He's beginning to behave differently than he did before. He's seeming more impulsive, less caring. This kind of behavior is very damaging for the kids.
Even with Frederick so close, Hattie welcomes another man into her apartment. The building's maintenance man, Lanny Ross, known as Chief, moves in with her.
Chief was the guy that he knew everything that was going on in that complex.
Hattie and Chief go way back.
It's so nice to have you back in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
When I moved to Memphis, I worked at a coffee shop in Memphis, and Chief was one of the regulars. We became friends, and he wound up rescuing me or the kid and became closer. Chief and I were never romantically involved.
I can't figure out why Chief is moved in with Hattie. It may be that he's attracted to her. It may be that he sees himself as a bit of a father figure and she's this needy woman and he can help her.
Looks to me like she's looking for a sugar daddy.
Whatever the reason Chief is there, his presence aggravates Frederick. And to make matters worse, Hattie appears to have yet another suitor. Jeff Magio. And soon, drug buddies will turn to mortal enemies.
What's going on?
They're best of friends when the dope is flowing, but when the dope dries up, they are not friends at all.
Frederick Smith and Hattie Reynolds are fighting for custody of their son, but they've reached a stalemate, having both failed drug tests. Jeff Magio sided with Hattie, even though she rejects him after a one-night stand. She'll soon wish that night had never happened. It turns out Jeff has a schizoaffective disorder. He suffers from hallucinations, mania, and depression.
Best of luck.
He had been on a lot of medications through the years. I don't know that they ever stabilized that. He would be okay, and then he wouldn't be okay. So from one extreme to the other.
He would just say things that were just, you knew they weren't true, you know, or if you know, I've seen UFOs, all this stuff, he would say stuff like that, and you're like, whatever.
You could tell you had mental problems just like everybody else, but I mean, like I said, everybody in the area had mental problems.
Guys, and I got in a fight. I got kicked out.
He had a good heart, but a rotten brain. Someone asked me, you know he was locked up in an institution before? I said, no. And they were like, yeah, ask him what for. You gonna really bug out on the answer? So I asked him, and he said, got kicked out of a bar for being too drunk, and he blacked out. And when he came to, he was carrying a dead body in his arms, and he didn't know what to do with it, and he threw it into a dumpster.
He had told me that he had killed someone. I just figured it was talk to scare me. He said many times that he felt like there was some evil inside him.
In March 2001, Jeff gets a brand new tattoo, his most audacious yet.
That's what it is. What do you think, huh?
That's disgusting.
Jeffrey showed up with his whole head tattooed in a spider web. Like, and we were all, wow, that's pretty, you know, I thought it looked cool.
What do you think? Huh? Come on.
I believe that during the time he got the tattoo on his head, he was letting the negative thoughts rule his life.
Jeff is so troubled by his own thoughts and actions that he tries to get help.
I don't think he was feeling right.
When he emerges weeks later, he seems resolved to be a better man. He calls Frederick and suggests they work on their friendship.
Frederick and my brother stopped by. Something was wrong with the vehicle.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Michelle doesn't have the tools to fix the car.
So I gave him a very old steak knife. And they looked under the hood for a little while, and then they left.
Good.
With Frederick's car in working order, they head off to the Mississippi River levee.
I kind of had a bad feeling.
Later that day, police are called to the building where Hattie, Chief, and Frederick all live.
What precipitated the whole case was the burning car. Now, by that time, the smoking hulk of a car. And what had happened, of course, is that someone had seen this vehicle on fire and had called 911.
The spectacle draws a crowd and the media.
It was an older sedan, and it was out, maybe smoldering by the time I got there.
Police find no sign of the driver, but there's something gruesome inside in the back seat. a smoldering human corpse.
The body was burned so badly, it was beyond recognition of either a man or a woman.
The most sickly sweet smell you'll ever encounter is the smell of a burning body, of a corpse. It took a while for them to get the vehicle, temperature-wise, down enough to where they could even remove the body. It's basically a big oven that's continuing to char this poor devil.
The following night, police receive a call from a bus station attendant in New Orleans saying they served a man who meets Jeff Magio's description.
He had the huge spider web on his head. It was pretty obvious, easy way to find him.
And it was later that same day that he was actually picked up by the United States Marshal Service in New Orleans, and then the next morning, I think, returned to Baton Rouge for questioning.
Police are confident they've located the killer, but nothing will prepare them for what Jeffrey Magio has to say.
Hattie had promised him sex for life.
Hattie Reynolds' ex-husband Frederick is found dead in a burning car, and Frederick's friend Jeff Magio is in custody.
They read him his rights, and they say, "Do you want to talk about it?" He says, "Well, sure, I'll talk about it. I'll tell you I killed him."
Jeff Magio admits to the murder, but claims it was not his idea.
Jeffrey's story to the detectives was that Hattie had apparently put the word out to several people within her circle that she wanted Frederick killed, that she and Frederick were involved in a custody battle over their son, and that she wanted someone to kill Frederick.
Jeff claims Hattie was too broke to pay for the hit, so she offers Jeff the only thing she has.
You know, you can have this anytime you want.
Really?
Yeah, really.
In exchange for the hit, she would become their sex slave or offer them free sexual services for life.
24/7.
Jeff stated on multiple occasions that he believed Hattie had promised him sex for life. And then he was gonna have a sex slave, or he was gonna have his own gimp.
One of the most bizarre motives I've heard. I've heard a lot of things, but that pretty much stands out as the most bizarre.
Jeff tells the cops how he carried out the hit in order to win his reward from Hattie.
We think there were actually several attempts made on Frederick that day.
Put that away. I got my
This is
kid.
the best. You want to try this, man. Trust me.
No, I don't want to try this. I don't want that. Get it out of the
He
way.
thought about first loading a syringe with some type of drain cleaner or some type of chemical and trying to poison him.
Well, that particular attempt was foiled because Frederick apparently was going to see his young son later in the day, and he told Jeffrey that he didn't want to be high during that meeting, so he declined.
Jeff pulls out Plan B, his sister's knife.
Take it, take it.
But we believe he actually missed Frederick and instead stabbed the car seat and literally broke the knife.
Wait, you're not going to...
Jeff, during the struggle, grabbed a speaker wire, wrapped it around Frederick's neck, and used it as a garrote and strangled him.
That's it. Yeah.
Then we believe Jeffrey began driving back toward the apartment complex.
He's smoking a cigarette and throws it in the back seat, catching the back seat on fire with the victim in it, who he'd covered up with a blanket.
This fire began growing in size as Jeffrey continued to drive back toward the complex, and we believe it put out so much smoke on the interior of the car that by the time he got back to the apartment complex, he really couldn't see anymore.
Like a cat bringing home its kill, Jeff brings the body back to show it to Hattie.
I gotta show you something.
What?
I gotta show you something. Come.
What are you doing
Just
here?
come. Just come with me. Come. Come, let me show you. Look.
It was our contention that he parked that vehicle exactly in the exact spot where Hattie could look out a window or open the door and see that he had done what he said he was going to do. And that was dispatch her ex-husband and that was the end of the story.
Hattie denies any involvement in the murder.
I absolutely didn't want anything bad to happen to Frederick, and he did not deserve to die in that way.
It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. They want a juicy story about an evil, slut, murder for hire, Black Widow type thing, it's provocative, but it's not true.
Oh, it's just driving me crazy.
Prosecutors say Jeff was not the only person Hattie approached.
It was clear from testimony of the maintenance men that she had made the same proposition to them.
Sex for life. To anyone who can get rid of him. Permanently.
I made an off-the-cuff remark about Frederick, and there were neighbors there.
You better watch what you say.
Mr. Magio apparently heard about this comment the joke I had made. He took it seriously, apparently.
Well, of course she would claim that because by that time she was a suspect in the murder, and the noose was going to tighten around her.
Police charged Jeff with second-degree murder, and they charge Hattie with conspiracy.
I was scared, but at the same time, I didn't think that there was anything to worry about because that's all they have is the word of a schizophrenic man.
Jeffrey Magio is tried first.
The only defense that they had, and his attorney properly raised it, and he had a good attorney, was a defense of insanity. And what that means is, hey, I did it, but I didn't know what I was doing. They made a conscious decision that he would take the stand and he would try to convince a jury that he didn't know right from wrong at the time he was committing this offense.
But the Louisiana jury doesn't buy it.
Jeff knew throughout this what he was doing.
Jeff Magio is convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in the Louisiana State Penitentiary.
He took a life. I mean, nobody gets away with that. He's not proud of what has happened, and he is sorry about the murder.
I believe that Hattie knew that he had mental issues. I believe that she knew that she could manipulate him. She definitely used that to her advantage to get what she wanted. Let's set the dogs on Frederick in the form of Mr. Jeffrey Magio.
We have one possibility, which is that Jeff killed Frederick completely on his own to impress Hattie. And we have another possibility, which is that Jeff killed Frederick at Hattie's behest, basically in order to get sex from Hattie for life afterwards.
There's no doubt in my mind that Hattie has a skill. She's great at getting men to want her and do what she wants. And she had Jeff obsessed with her. What is not being factored in here is a third possibility, which is we already know that Jeff has schizoaffective disorder and that he sometimes has delusions and hears voices that people are telling him to do things that aren't really happening. So it is possible that he imagined that Hattie told him to kill Frederick and it didn't really happen.
Nope. I didn't.
In Hattie's case, there's no concrete evidence of her participation. In 2003, she makes a deal and accepts the charge of accessory after the fact for allegedly helping Jeff get away.
When I saw they weren't going to give me a trial, I finally took a no contest plea because they told me they'd let me out then if I did it. I'd been 13 months without touching my child, and I just said I can't take it anymore.
Hattie serves a total of 2.5 years in jail.
I, of course, would have liked to have been able to convict her. Of course, hindsight's 20/20. Here we are 12 years later, and she's had no further criminal activity to my knowledge. In that regard, I guess it was a proper decision to make.
She gave up custody of her son and never regained it. Today, she lives with Chief and Virginia in Baton Rouge. Frederick is remembered as an imperfect man, but he is loved. and missed.
Frederick did not deserve that. He didn't do it. Not at all.
I also loved Frederick very, very, very much. I know from the deepest depths of my heart that my mother had nothing to do with this.
I feel bad for the young boy that had to grow up without his father. That's sad. Didn't have to happen.